interest, please feel free to see me, or when Kathy returns, Kathy. While she's gone, you can talk to me about it. We're having a new member Sunday. I think we have 5 or 6 people joining us on Sunday, March the 31st, which is Easter Sunday. Quite a wonderful day to celebrate new membership. So also, I just wanted to make an announcement. I know this is looking kind of far ahead, but many people really enjoyed Hannah Barasansi last year speaking to us about the things that she has done in the world of planting trees and other kinds of earth things. So she will be back. She will be back on Sunday, May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. We're having all these Sundays with holidays, and I just like that because I'm festive. But so she'll be here with us on May the 5th. I just kind of wanted to let you know because I just found out about that. And so just mark your calendars, May 5th, if you're interested in hearing Hannah speak. She's working this summer with me also on a UU award. She's working towards an honor for receiving a UU award she's been nominated for, and I'm helping her with that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her here. The only other have a jar for change for charity, and then we do accept donations online, and so we just wanted to let you know we don't take up an offering. And I think most everybody has kind of been around, but I just want to make sure that I do that. Any other announcements that you might want to share with the community? Kelly.
New member, I'm just going to call it orientation versus a class, is tentatively scheduled for Sunday, April 14th. After the service, we'll have a potluck and then a short hour and a half kind of get together, find out a little bit more about UUism and Dakota at UU Church specifically, and how you can be involved in all those kinds of fun things. And answer any other questions you have.
And that's for any new members that have joined in the past year. Also, anybody who else is interested who's never had a new member thing, sure. Everybody's welcome. And maybe we'll try to get it on Zoom, but I'm not sure about that. We didn't talk about that yet, but right. That shouldn't be too difficult. Other announcements?
A week from today, my chorus, Great Northern Union, is hosting a kind of a festival of other choirs in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, I think. 2:30 is the show time. And it's at O'Shaughnessy Auditorium at the College of St. Catherine. And tickets were priced specifically for people who couldn't otherwise afford it, so you can pay what you are willing to pay, $5, $15, or $20, $25, something like that. And it's on the, I think it's in the MailChimp. Did I put it in the MailChimp? But anyway, I'll put it on the MailChimp this week for sure.
I don't think you do put it in. I don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
Others?
Oh, Moose Jaw is the Minnesota UU Social Justice Alliance, and they are really, really hoping to get members of, well, for 2 things. Well, I'll start with one. UU The Vote is one of their projects where we're trying to get more people involved in our democratic process, and they would like 2 liaisons for each congregation. I'm able to be one, but they'd like a second one just to help each other back it up. Karen Wills coordinates that project at Moose Jaw, and she totally does so many things to help us be successful at this, getting the word out. So she'll create the events and the documents and stuff, and we just got to spread the word within our congregations. The second thing is they are also hosting a class for congregations, a trans inclusion class. It starts in April. It's on Zoom on Thursday nights. I think it's 6 weeks, and they are looking for 2 members of each congregation, at least 3 maximum, to participate in this class. So if you're interested in either one of those, please, 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 please see me.
Can I put my name down for the class too?
The class? Great.
Also, while I'm thinking about dates, because I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that next week Sana will be joining us. She's been here a couple times this year. People often have requested that she comes, so she'll be back. And then looking forward to the future, also we'll be looking, and Shelley will be back at the end of April. And we have a lot of good lineup of things going on. We only have 9 services left for the church year, as Kathleen and I were talking about. So they're booked, and we're really excited about all of the things that we've been doing. So with that, I will invite you to take a deep breath. Center yourselves as much as you can, and rid yourself of the chaos of the world around you and all of those things that are preoccupying you as much as you can, and meditate to this musical prelude.
I don't think this gets shown on the screen, so you don't know what oh, it is, Forest Flower. There we go, by Charles Lloyd. Think of finding a flower in a forest.
And now I invite you to remain seated and join us in our opening words. At this time of balance, at this time of awakening, we celebrate Ostara, the spring equinox.
We honor the fertile earth. We honor the warming breezes.
We honor the waxing light. We honor the nurturing rains.
Welcome spring, new life to bring, to land, to us, to all.
Welcome spring, rebirth we sing, within and round us all.
May the powers of the Ancient One, the Spirit of life, source of all creation, bring us renewed energy and new possibilities.
May the powers of the divine and the powers of the guardian spirits, rulers of the elemental realms,
and all the brilliance of the stars above and the earth below, bless this time, this place, and all who gather here around this magnificent planet.
in the spirit of new life and rebirth, we light this chalice as a community and say together,
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
I invite you to rise as you are able and join us in hymn number 61.
I will play through it. I put it down so it's a little lower.
We gather together as a community of seekers to honor the interdependence of life, to respect the dignity of all, and to honor the land we walk humbly upon. Friends, let us acknowledge that we now stand and sit upon the traditional territories of the indigenous people, the Dakota, for whom this very county and congregation are named, and others, the members of the original nations of this land who continue to cry out for justice, preservation, and self-determination. We are blessed with a space, a community, and opportunities to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. It is that time during our service where we share our joys and concerns, and if so moved, feel free to come and light a candle. And at the end, I'll light a final candle for all of those unspoken joys and concerns.
This is a joy for our very special guest, Leo, and my friend, neighbor, Ann. And Leo is a therapy dog. I'm sure Ann would be happy to share more about him after the service. And also any other guests, new guests today, we welcome.
It's so hard not to pet him.
He's a pet me dog, you can pet him.
He's a pet me dog?
Yeah, he's a
Me
therapy,
too.
therapy not a service dog.
I didn't mean that.
I just wanted to acknowledge the song and all the voices in here. It really sounded cool and full, and you know, it's like an auditory hug. So thank you for that.
Alrighty. So my mother's birthday was on the 14th this month. We don't really have the closest relationship, and that day's always been kind of hard for me, just because forgiving is hard. But I guess acknowledgement is the first step, right?
I think this is more of an update than a joy. We're updating on my parents. They have gotten to, I think it's their third country now that they just traveled to, and they got their first sunshine. So, for the sunshine finally coming out.
Which country?
Italy, somewhere in Italy. I'm not
They were in
100%
Ireland.
sure. They have Ireland.
They were in Ireland for
I have an itinerary. We can pull it up later. I don't know where they are right now.
Yeah. I just remembered this. So our son Pete, his girlfriend, fiance, but don't tell anybody. Oops, you didn't hear that. She had a birthday also on March 14th. Pie Day. All right.
This is for our cats. They turned 7 like 2 days ago. And also for Kelly's mom who's here with us.
Nice. By the way, I'm monitoring the live stream on YouTube in case anybody has a joy concern or something, I can share it.
I'm gonna go here, I guess. Joy, all right. I had originally told the group here that I was going to accept a full-time job, but I decided not to accept that. It would have brought too much stress to my life, so I have an actual job now that's part-time, 15 hours a week, doing music therapy and sound healing in an Alzheimer's dementia community.
Nice.
And Ann and I are working together. Watch for our upcoming shows.
Stay
Shameless
tuned.
plug.
Stay tuned, yes.
Well, I'll start by getting the green candle.
Yes.
By the way, green is my favorite color, so this St. Patrick's Day is pretty cool. I wanted to light this candle once again without trying to get too emotional to give my gratitude to this congregation because you all are just amazing. And then I will also light a final candle for all of those joys and concerns which have not been mentioned. Sometimes it takes a couple times. And try not to burn myself.
That's good.
May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together for all of these joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken.
We hold you in our hearts.
This beautiful stable weather has taken a toll on my respiratory system, so please bear with me. This is a reflective reading by Jennifer Johnson, a lifelong UU member. It is called Waiting to Grow Again. Please hear these words. Spirit of life, source of being, open our hearts and minds to all that is possible in this season of liminality, this in-between season. Sometimes winter, sometimes nearly spring, not quite one or the other. Against a white background, several flower bulbs and one upright bulbs with shoots of green rising from its top. Beneath the crust of the earth, seeds and bulbs lay in store. Some, crocus and daffodil, have dared to pierce the surface already, braving to become next in the next iteration of self, a new bloom. On the forsythia and magnolia branches, petals curl into themselves, swelling into uncertain buds, waiting for the optimal conditions of light and warmth and rain to unfold into their potential for beauty and delight. On the bare branches of maple, oak, and elm, tiny leaves are invisibly budding, readying themselves for their debut, a new wardrobe for a new season. We too are waiting to grow again. Like perennial plants and deciduous trees, we don't grow along a singular trajectory from infancy through childhood to the full bloom of adulthood and the wider unfolding of elder years. Rather, we grow anew, year upon year, in seasons and cycles, in the cold and dark of winters, real and metaphorical. We hunker down, seek shelter and stillness, conserve energy so that new vitality can germinate. In this liminal season, we are waiting for signs of even longer light, lasting warmth, and quenching rains, waiting to grow again, anew. What new growth is budding in you? readying itself to make its debut, to adorn the world with the new beauty and delight of spring. Can you hear it singing? I'll see if I can do this. I've got to breathe first. Well, one of my recent purchases was this seemingly unimpressive little pot that said on it blue hyacinth. But there was nothing but green petals. And I bought it because it was on sale. Think of all the money I saved, right? That's what I always tell myself. And I also bought it because, for some reason, I think probably the smell of newly blossoming hyacinth is among one of my favorite, like, olfactory senses. I think probably my favorite is lavender, but, you know, it's a little early for lavender. So I bought this, you know, kind of unadulterated little pot. And over the course of the last week, it has blossomed and filled our brand new apartment with the smell of spring. And for a while, we thought it was spring, right? And it snowed on the way here today. Spring is, of course, around the corner, as we like to say. And of course, this week is the spring equinox, also known as Ostara in earth-based traditions. And around the world, there are other traditions like Nowruz, which I have a hard time saying, but it is a Zoroastrian festival in Asia that celebrates the equinox. There's also Songkran, which I also have a hard time saying, which is another Asian festival in Thailand mostly, but it's a Buddhist festival that celebrates the spring equinox. And of course, we have the ones that we know, like Easter and Passover. And St. Patrick's Day, actually, if you didn't know already, evolved out of the whole idea of celebration of springtime and the equinox. One of the things that has always fascinated me, though, and I've talked about it before, about how these world religions seem to have lots of commonalities over the centuries of development. And one of those things is, what do these all have in common besides the fact that it's the equinox? Almost every single celebration around the world among all these religions is the idea of spring cleaning. Everybody's favorite, right? Now, some of us have recently done spring cleaning because of moving and realizing, you know, you have to ask yourself the question, do I really need this? And why have I had this for 10 years and never opened a box? It's an invitation for a new type of spring cleaning. At the same time, when you hear the words that I read, you heard the word metaphorical. And I want to dive a little bit more deeply into the idea of metaphorical spring cleaning. As I had said last week, and this is sort of continuing the larger theme for the month of March, which is transformation, which many UU churches are really commemorating this month. One of the things about spring cleaning, metaphorically, is thinking about those things in our lives which we may want to purge. Like, more literally, that box that I had for 10 years that I never opened for some reason, that probably could go to use somewhere else. But metaphorically, what are some of the things that we might want to think about in our own lives that we want to purge so that we can too move forward into a new season of life? It has always been interesting to me to see in Minnesota that people get so excited about the holidays and they put up the holiday decorations, and then it's March and there are still holiday decorations up around. And this year, I've been saying a little bit, is that people don't have much of an excuse because it's been kind of nice to get outside and take those down. But I realize that for some people, it's very difficult to take those decorations down because often they do include light. And during our winter, of course, light gets a little bit less. Well, let's be honest, a lot less in the winter. And so the light that these decorations bring help to fill that void a little bit. But the light that I'd like to help you shed on whatever it is in your life that you might want to purge during this time of spiritual spring cleaning is to think about all the things that kind of hold you back. Now, I talked about that again. I don't try to do sermon series or anything like that, but since it's a theme of transformation, I feel like it is warranted to think about what are some types of spiritual spring cleaning. Well, one of the things, and Josh, I didn't, this was prepared before you lit your candle, I promise, is to seek how we have not been able to forgive and to learn how to forgive. And that includes ourselves. Forgiveness is not an easy task for the most part. If it's really easy, then that's one thing. But forgiveness is very difficult. And by the way, I often say that forgiveness does not necessarily mean the release of accountability, and it does not mean forgetting. I know there's the adage, forgive and forget. But if you forget everything totally, then you are putting yourself up for having some issues in the future, potentially, because the same thing could happen over and over again. So I'm not a proponent of forgetting. However, I am a proponent of forgiving. Forgiveness is something that challenges us, especially in a society where things are so divisive. Don't we experience that on a daily basis if we listen to the news? I mean, I'm one of those, and I'm sure there are others who listen to NPR as much as I can all day long. And it's just sometimes overwhelming to hear of the divisiveness, even though NPR tries to present everything as much as possible in a total kind of way. The divisiveness that we are sometimes faced with because of the way society pressures us into it makes it even more difficult to forgive. And that also includes ourselves. Sometimes we get so bogged down about the things that we have done wrong in our lives, or those things that grieve us so much about any bad habits, ranging from things like, eating that piece of pie last night even though you know you shouldn't have, to not actually doing something in the world that brings you peace, but rather chaos, whatever that is. Forgiveness is an act of grace. Grace is one of those theological terms. I mean, I had a professor who taught an entire class on the theology of grace. So we don't have time to talk about all that. But grace is, if you don't know the definition, I'll share it with you. If you do, I apologize. Grace is bestowing on someone something that they can never repay you for. And in some circles in the world of theology, depending on your theological bent, it also means giving something to someone that they don't deserve. But I don't like that theology. I like being able, almost looking at it through an altruistic lens of bestowing on someone something that they don't necessarily or will not ever be able to give back to you. And that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is actually for you and not necessarily just for the other person. It releases from you, it purges from you the things that are holding you back as a result of some wrongdoing that has been done to you, either by yourself or by somebody else. And as I had said last week, this is a season throughout the world where people engage in forgiveness. That's what, in the Christian tradition, the season of Lent is about, at least in part. It's what the month of Ramadan is about. There are many other examples of seasons where we want to purge those things that hold us back. And I invite you to spend some time thinking about forgiveness and what forgiveness you need to do. The second thing that might be something that you consider in your spring cleaning of the soul is to get rid of the negative thoughts that are holding you back. Like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. Or, it's hopeless. Or, what can I do? I can't make a difference. You've heard these things from me before. But if you just stop for a second and consider those kinds of negative thoughts that hold you back from moving forward in your life, you can purge those by processing them in different ways. By thinking about, why do you hold on to that? Why do you hold on to the negativity? What is holding you to that? What keeps you so tied to negativity? And we all have it in some stretch of the imagination. Although our Buddhist teachings tell us to live in joy, despite the fact that all life is suffering, which is also Buddhist, we're supposed to live in joy. Kind of a dichotomy there, but I'm just telling you. But negative thoughts are, I've heard some people say, and I'm not sure how true it is, that negativity takes a lot more energy than positivity. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is true either, that frowning takes more muscles than smiling. I was told that when I was a kid. I don't know. But the point is that negativity holds us back, whereas joy moves us forward. So I invite you in this time of spring cleaning, in the time of balance during this upcoming spring equinox that happens on Wednesday when it's going to be 18 degrees. Not that I'm bitter, I'm just saying. I invite you, see, I have my own negative thoughts, right? I invite you to think about what negativity you might want to purge during your spring cleaning of the soul. And moving on to the sort of the third and final thing of soul spring cleaning is to consider those things in your life that you want to do this year as this season unfolds. We have the summer to look forward to. I know when I lived in Minnesota years ago, it was very popular to say, we take our summers seriously. Like, don't we? I mean, we only have church once a month, we take it so seriously, right? What can we do to bring joy not just to ourselves, but to everybody else around us as we approach this season of long light and warmth, sometimes a little too warm, but warmth nonetheless? What are some things that you can do as you move forward into this season of warmth that can change the way that you do things? Thinking about new routines. This is not surprisingly, among all these world religions, the time where teachers in each one of these religions tell you this is the time to create new routines. When I was growing up, and this is a little bit, I put this in here just because I wanted to make sure I had time for it. When I grew up, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Farmer's Almanac. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is just a little bit, this is a little sarcasm, but you know me already. So my parents, I grew up in a very conservative religion. And what was very interesting to me is that under the radar, everybody looked and consulted the Farmer's Almanac, which is very pagan and very earth-centered. No problem with that at all, but I thought it was funny growing up in a conservative Christian religion where they downplay all the earth-centered and pagan traditions, but yet at home under the table we're talking about, oh, when are we supposed to sow the seeds? We're not consulting the Bible about that, we're consulting the Farmer's Almanac. What an interesting thing. You know, it's not the only culture that does that. I mean, I've been studying religions around the world for a long time, and we remember our guest Paul, who taught me a lot about how in his part of Nigeria, people practice Roman Catholicism, but yet when they go home, they practice their native traditions secretly in their homes, right? So it's not dissimilar from that at all. But I bring that up because this is the time during the year where we start to prepare to plant the seeds that are going to grow into full blossom and fruit ultimately when we get to the season of harvest. And so as we look to try to change our routines after we've forgiven and done that work, purged ourselves of negativity as much as we possibly can, now it's our time to plant seeds. And as I was moving more plants, I don't know how I ended up with so many plants. Again, do I need to purge plants? Never purge plants. I learned. So I have these tomato plants that are, I'm just like telling my family yesterday, I just want them to make it until May so that I can put them outside, because these are actually leftovers from tomato plants that I had last summer. And I just keep breaking off pieces and put them in dirt until I can finally put them in the soil outside. But isn't that part of it too? Like trying to plant seeds and pieces. One of my favorite things to do is to propagate plants. In fact, I was asked yesterday, why do I have 10 pieces of pothos in water when I already have 15 pots of pothos? I don't know. It's just what we do, okay? It's just what we do. Somebody might need a pothos, right? Don't you? Don't you need a pothos? I got one for you. All right, there you go. So as we move again toward what I'm calling the soul spring cleaning, or spring cleaning of the soul, I invite you to consider these words. I didn't have a fancy story to tell you today. No, I can't always tell you a story because not everything is a story. Sometimes it's a practical application of spiritual transformation or the possibility thereof. Spring cleaning, not everybody's favorite time, not everybody's favorite activity, but I think very necessary for us to grow, as the reading suggested, over the course of the seasons, over the course of our lives, as we transform, as we evolve individually and as a community. I invite you to think about what you can purge and what you can do new that you haven't done yet. Blessed be.
this.
I invite us into community discussion as you feel moved to do so.
Yeah, okay, forgiveness is a complex thing. I don't even like the word because the process that we're referring to, when we use that word, is so complex and means so many different things to so many different people. But to me, forgiveness, okay, some of the elements of it, you know, are sort of an intellectual acceptance of what happened. I mean, it's in the past, recognize it's in the past, and sort of an emotional stopping of a reaction to it, to the thing in the past, and, you know, willing to go into the present with, you know, okay, intellectually I know what happened, emotionally I've got a fresh start. I don't know, that's some of the ways. But when we think about that process, we're often thinking about it in terms of our current response to something that happened in the past. But talk to me about what happens when the hurt is ongoing, when it's not over yet. I can't believe there's not some benefit to be gained from working on that process, even while the hurt is underway. But talk to me about the past and present aspects of forgiveness. I have a hard time sorting that out.
Well, I mean, certainly I'm not the only person that can probably talk about that, but that's, for me, part of the not forgetting. Even though something may be ongoing, the forgiveness is always in process, but not forgetting is important because it helps you grow and figuring out how to continue to engage in ongoing forgiveness. And the accountability piece, like I've said so many times in pastoral care situations where you can forgive someone, but they don't have to be a part of your life anymore. And that's important because healthy boundaries help us move along a trajectory. But you're right, it's a really complicated process, and other people might have some input as well of how to be forgiving in an ongoing way when the hurt is still occurring. That's challenging.
I always try to remind myself when I'm having a hard time forgiving about the saying that says, not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison yourself and expecting it to affect that person. And I try to remember that.
I was just wrestling with this in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep. Trying to keep the dark thoughts out of my head in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, which is just the hardest. It's hard to get back to sleep, and I start cogitating.
Obsessed.
I can't sleep.
And
Ruminating.
rumors of agreement, is it
Ruminating.
going through that? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, and some stuff I'm going through with family members, and it cuts me deeply. And in the middle of the night, in the dark, I thought about my dad, who was a bipolar alcoholic. I mean, I had all these labels to put on him, and as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, well, all these labels kind of justify the pain that was causing our family and the hurt I still think about. I still think about little, the little stories, the little vignettes of memories. And so it occurred to me last night when I was having a dark thought, and then I tried to just flip it to what's the positive side of that. Easter bunnies, rainbows, I mean, even if I had to jump to something corny, it was getting my head out of a dark place. So anyhow, what just struck me was some of the things that my dad had done that were so helpful for me. Even at the time, he didn't agree with my decision to get divorced. He bought my kids and I plane tickets to fly us back from Tampa, so I didn't have to drive a moving van by myself. with 2 toddlers. And that was really against what he believed I should be doing, and we couldn't talk about it. It was one of those conversations where I had to hang up the phone because it wasn't going to progress, and he could not understand where I was coming from. Or he'd have to invalidate his life. So, I guess what I'm trying to get to is that cycle of thinking of how I perceive what happened and how it lives in me is still there with my son, with some of the choices he's making and how he's rejecting me, and my ability to understand it but not get too sucked into the undertow and maintain my boundaries and my self-respect, what I know, and let that go, does become forgiving him and forgiving me for decisions I made or hurt I caused, intentionally or not. Because I don't want to lay awake every night for the rest of my life, ruminating on what, where, when, how, why, who, and what can I do about it. Maybe the only thing I can do to move forward is to forgive. I don't think anybody in this situation of mine did anything with malice or hurt anybody intentionally, but they're all dealing with their own shit pile that they, ended up with. And it's hard to see that when you're in pain. But if it doesn't move you forward and bring you joy, then why sit there with it if you can make another choice? And there's got to be a retraining of how, at least for me, how I see this and keep playing this stuff out in my head. And that takes a lot of work because it's so familiar and so easy to go back to the, oh, he was an alcoholic, oh, he committed suicide, oh, we did this, oh, we did that. I have lots of reasons to justify why I can feel like this. But it doesn't get me anywhere. And it's harder work to just try to change that thinking and move it along and not stay stuck there.
I can definitely relate to that. For a long time, I used to, wear my trauma, on my sleeve, like it was a badge of honor. And then I realized it's like holding onto barbed wire.
Yeah.
And it just, stuck after a while.
Yeah, does it get you where you want to be?
No.
It keeps you from even dreaming about that.
Exactly.
It's like, when I'm here.
You're so involved in it, but you need to protect yourself is really what you're thinking is how do you protect yourself and then forgive or forget or whatever. Just protecting yourself. And that's really difficult because you're engaged with all these people. It's always people. It's not the weather. It's people.
Well, sometimes I think I have to realize that I'm protecting myself against something I can't control, and that's the fear. Is I want to love these people. I can't do it the way I need to, because they won't allow it. And I don't have control over that, so I have to go, okay, well then, if I need to love people, I have to find another way to do that. As part of that healing. And that's really hard to make that shift. Because I really want the love of my son. I want the relationship. I want the closeness with both my kids. But they have, they're sort of rooted in but this happened and that happened and that happened and off with your head. Maybe at some point they'll change, but I can't manage that for them. But that protecting, I'm still protecting my wounded heart. My dad did this and this. You can't do it.
Yeah. In some esoteric readings, they suggest that we choose our parents.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And we choose the experiences we have. And so I know in my own journey, I have tried to look at everything that I've gone through, the hurts, as an opportunity to learn compassion. Because what you're going through and what you have experienced, there's someone else out there who's suffering with the same thing. So when you can look at it as an opportunity to love unconditionally. You know, they don't have to love you back. You can just love them. When you love unconditionally, it brings light to the situation and gives you an opportunity to practice compassion for them, yourself, and others who aren't as far along in the journey as you are. That's how I look
Oh,
at it.
I like that,
Yeah.
that people who aren't far enough along on the journey as you are.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, I think of it as maturity, but you
Well,
say
it's
it better.
Spiritual learnings,
Yeah.
which is what it's all about. That's why we go through all this stuff on this challenging planet, this challenging reality we call Earth.
Well, we'll be able to continue this over treats at the conclusion, but I will just add to it that one of my favorite parts of pastoral training, this is why I really give thanks so much for my seminary training, is that my professor of pastoral care and counseling, Christy Nuger, who is pretty infamous in the circles, she taught us about narrative theory of psychology, and it is my understanding and the way I try to live my life is that we are the author of our own story, our own narrative. We may not be able to control every single piece of the plot, but we are able to conceive and create the responses to the types of things that happen to us in our story. And then we can weave our own story together through those little bits and pieces until we create a whole narrative of our own. And while that sounds really nice and flowery, I really hold to that we are, you know, the author of our own story. And you know me, I love stories. And that story can transform us depending on how we author it. And with that, I invite you to join me in our closing hymn, and we'll continue this after number 63. Number 63.
I will play it through because this is a brand new one, I think. All right, here we go, I'll play through it.
Please rise as you're able. we leave this place and move out into the world and engage our spring cleaning of the soul, I invite us to seek peace, to author your story, to author our story continually together as we grow and build this congregation. May we go, may we do, may we be, and let us live in love. Amen. Please be seated.
I just want everyone to know I'm gonna play The Lark in the Morning, and then I'll play the intro to another song that Ann is gonna come up and sing. So we're taking the liberty to add another song. Okay, here we go.
Makes it hard to see the notes, but it's okay.
What is that song about? It's about, yes, somebody going off to war and the father might he might die.
Death was in there somewhere.
It's translated.
It was really bad words.
Yeah, it's touching the
Like Celtic words.